The story of Jonah and the whale. In the gentle days of old, when prophets walked the earth, and the Lord spoke directly to those who would listen, there lived a man named Jonah in the land of Israel. The warm Mediterranean sun blessed his days, and cool evening breeze carried the salt of the sea to his door. Jonah was known among his people as one who heard the voice of God, sharing divine messages with those who needed guidance. One peaceful evening, as the sun painted the sky in soft shades of purple and gold, the Lord spoke to Jonah. The message was clear and strong, like distant thunder rolling across calm waters. Go to Nineveh, the great city, and speak to its people. Their ways have become troubled, and they need to hear words of warning and wisdom. But Jonah, in his human heart, felt fear and resistance flowing through him like a swift current. Nineveh was a mighty city of the Assyrian Empire, known for its grandeur and its struggles. The thought of traveling to this distant place and speaking difficult truths to its people filled Jonah with unease. The warmth of his home and the comfort of familiar surroundings pulled at him, whispering of safer paths. In the soft light of dawn, Jonah made a choice that would lead him on an unexpected journey. Instead of heading east toward Nineveh, he walked down to the port of Joppa, where fishing boats and merchant vessels bobbed gently in the harbor. The salty air filled his lungs as he searched for a ship heading in the opposite direction, toward Tarshish, a distant port where he hoped to find refuge from his divine calling. The wooden boards of the dock creaked softly beneath his feet as he approached a weathered vessel preparing for departure. The sailors welcomed him aboard, their weather-worn faces kind and unknowing of the significance their passenger carried. As Jonah settled among the cargo, the gentle lapping of waves against the hull seemed to echo his troubled thoughts. As the ship sailed westward across the vast Mediterranean, the first day passed in peaceful motion, with sunlight dancing on the waves and seabirds gliding overhead. The gentle rhythm of the sea seemed to calm Jonah's troubled spirit, and he found a quiet spot below deck where he could rest his weary mind and body. But the peace was not to last, for the Lord had not forgotten his servant. As evening approached on the second day, the sky began to change. The soft blue heavens darkened to deep gray, and the gentle breeze that had carried them forward grew stronger with each passing moment. The sailors, experienced in the ways of the sea, felt the change in their bones and began to prepare for what was to come. The waves that had once cradled the ship now grew tall and powerful, lifting the vessel high before letting it slide down into deep valleys of water. The wind sang through the ropes and sails, its melody becoming a mournful song that echoed across the darkening waters. Rain began to fall, first as a gentle mist, then in heavy drops that blended with the spray of the sea. Below deck, Jonah lay in deep sleep, his consciousness wrapped in dreams, while above the sailors worked with growing concern. Each man called out to his own God, their voices carried away by the strengthening storm. The captain, moving carefully across the pitching deck, made his way below to find Jonah still at rest in the midst of the tempest. With gentle urgency, The captain roused Jonah from his slumber. The prophet opened his eyes to the sound of creaking timbers and the rolling motion of the ship. In that moment, as the vessel heaved beneath him, Jonah knew in his heart that this storm was no ordinary occurrence. The weight of his disobedience pressed upon him like the heavy clouds above. The sailors, having cast lots to discover the source of their misfortune, found that Jonah was the cause of their peril. Yet even in their fear and confusion, they approached him with compassion, seeking to understand rather than condemn. The sea continued to churn around them, its waves growing ever more forceful. As Jonah slowly began to share his story, in the midst of the rolling waves and howling wind, Jonah spoke with a calm that seemed to briefly quiet the storm itself. He told the sailors of his God, the creator of land and sea, and of his attempt to flee from divine purpose. As he spoke, the sailors listened with growing understanding, their faces illuminated by occasional flashes of lightning that turned the rain into curtains of silver. Jonah knew what needed to be done, and in this knowledge, he found a strange peace. With gentle resignation, he told the sailors that to calm the sea, they must lift him up and let him slip beneath the waves. The sailors, kind souls despite their rough exterior, were reluctant to take such action. They rowed harder against the mighty swells, their muscles straining as they tried to reach land, but the sea only grew more turbulent. Finally, with heavy hearts and a prayer to Jonah's God for forgiveness, the sailors lifted him with careful hands. The rain fell soft around them now, as if nature itself paused to witness this moment. With one fluid motion, they released Jonah into the heaving waters. The sea embraced him, drawing him down into its mysterious depths. As Jonah descended into the cool darkness, something extraordinary approached through the waters. A great fish, sent by the Lord, moved through the deep with graceful purpose. Its massive form glided closer, and in a moment that seemed to pause time itself, Jonah was drawn into its belly. Here, in this most unexpected sanctuary, Jonah would find both shelter and revelation. Inside the great fish, Jonah found himself in a space between worlds. The sound of rushing waters surrounded him, and the gentle movement of the creature through the sea became a soothing rhythm. In this strange chamber, illuminated by an ethereal glow, Jonah began to pray. His words, born of genuine remorse and understanding, floated up through the waters toward heaven. For 3 days and 3 nights, Jonah dwelled in this unusual haven. The time passed like a dream, marked by prayer, reflection, and a deepening awareness of divine love and purpose. The darkness that had once seemed frightening became a comfort, like a warm blanket wrapped around his shoulders, allowing him to rest in the presence of his Creator. On the 3rd day, as the first light of dawn painted the surface of the sea in gentle hues of pink and gold, the great fish approached the shoreline. Following divine guidance, It released Jonah onto the warm sands with the tenderness of a mother placing her child in a cradle. The morning air felt fresh and new against his skin, carrying the sweet scent of coastal flowers and sun-warmed earth. Jonah lay for a moment on the beach, feeling the soft sand beneath him and watching the peaceful clouds drift overhead. His time within the fish had transformed him, washing away his resistance like shells smoothed by the tides. The voice of the Lord came to him once more, carried on the morning breeze, gentle yet clear as crystal waters. Again, the message was the same: go to Nineveh. This time, Jonah rose with purpose, his steps steady and sure as he began his journey eastward. The path to Nineveh was long, winding through valleys and across plains. As he walked, the landscape changed from coastal meadows to rolling hills, then to vast stretches of open country. The sun and stars became his companions, marking the rhythm of his days. Nineveh finally appeared on the horizon like a dream made real, its walls rising tall and proud against the sky. The city was vast, taking 3 days to walk from one end to the other. Its streets teemed with life, filled with people going about their daily tasks. Unaware of the message Jonah carried, markets bustled with activity, children played in dusty courtyards, and the air was rich with the scent of cooking fires and blooming gardens. With newfound courage and compassion, Jonah began to share his message. His voice, tempered by his experiences, carried neither judgment nor harshness, but rather concern and hope. He spoke of the need for change, of turning away from harmful ways, of finding a better path. To his amazement, the people of Nineveh listened. From the highest official to the humblest worker, they heard in his words a call to transformation. Like a gentle rain that softens hard ground, Jonah's message began to take root in the hearts of Nineveh's people. They chose to change their ways, to show kindness where there had been cruelty, to seek justice where there had been wrongdoing. The entire city joined in this peaceful revolution of the spirit, creating a wave of positive change that rippled through every street and household. As Jonah witnessed the transformation of Nineveh, something unexpected began to stir in his own heart. He found himself sitting in quiet contemplation on a hillside overlooking the city, watching the life below unfold in new and beautiful ways. The Lord had provided a leafy plant that grew up beside him, offering cool shade from the warm sun, a gentle reminder of divine care and wisdom. In this peaceful moment of rest, Jonah began to understand more deeply the nature of compassion and forgiveness. The same mercy that had sent the great fish to save him had now touched an entire city. Like the waves that had once carried him, God's love flowed without boundaries, reaching to all who would receive it. The plant that sheltered him became a living lesson in grace, growing and offering its gifts freely.